Welcome, everybody. This is John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Steve Song. This is the Raging Verbalist number 178. For those who are keeping track, check it off, another one on the wall. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a longtime viewer, glad to have you back. We broadcast these things on both YouTube and Facebook. On Facebook, it is the Position to Win book group. And on YouTube, of course, it's the Raging Verbalist, and you can hit that subscribe button. That would be helpful, and also boost our ratings by giving us a thumbs up. And if you want to be annoyed, hit the notification bell. So what we do is that I talk about subjects that matter to me, that I rage on about, and I have somebody who stands in for you, and she is the lovely Sandra. So welcome, Sandra, to the show.
Hello, how are you doing today?
Doing well, other than I want to take an axe to some technology this morning. But other than that, we're doing good. We're doing good.
There you go. All right.
All right, so let's dive right in. What are we talking about today? What is this?
All right, so I'll say first, happy 50th anniversary of joining the dark side. So the first question is, why do you call it joining the dark side?
So for those of you who don't know, I have been selling, and I started a business a little over 50 years ago, but I actually got my first sales job, and as close as my best friend and I can recollect, it's records are lost to the archaeologists and all of that, is that it's basically 50 years ago, and we're going to call it right now because it was in May. And the reason why I call it the dark side is really simple, because when I started telling people in a very excited way, even didn't matter what age, where they came from, background, you name it, you tell people that you're in sales, and it's the dark side. And the reason I call it the dark side is that there are so many people who look down upon this as being some low level. Why are these people there? We don't need them. In fact, there's a famous tech company, no longer with us, of course, who said, well, I don't like salespeople, so we're not even going to call them that, not going to even pay commissions. No surprise that they're gone now. So life is that way. So I call it the dark side because whenever somebody would move from whatever they were doing, whether they were an accountant, an engineer, whatever they might be in background, and they said, John, I'm going to go and try my hand at sales. I've been watching the sales world, and I think I can do that job. And, they would want to step into it. And I just think it's the dark side because they're, first off, as far as I know, and if it's out there, you can put it in the comments or you can send it to Sandra, but there is no 4-year degree in doing sales. You can go get a degree in marketing. I got that. You can go get a degree in digital marketing. But the sales thing, not so much. In fact, there's a lot of energy and time spent telling people they don't have to sell, and therefore it is the dark side, and it is not something that you say to your kids, Billy, Sally, hey, grow up and become great at sales. It's like, what? Oh, you couldn't do other things, so you descended into this hell of sales. So that's why I call it the dark side.
All right, and what was your first sales job like 50 years ago?
Well, my first sales job was, first off, I had to convince the owner of this wholesale house that they should hire me as a salesperson. So I had to go and do that first pitch. And he said, well, you're a little younger. He didn't know how young I was, by the way. You're a little younger than anybody we hire. And besides which, it's like, I don't know. So I said, well, and they had a showroom, right? Wholesale houses do have showrooms. And there was somebody sitting on the floor. And he said, well, if you can walk up to that guy and introduce yourself and start talking to him and get something going, I'll consider it. I said, well, don't consider it because it's going to happen. So I walked up to the guy and I was trying to think very quickly. Again, I had no experience. And I said, well, what am I going to say to this guy? And my opening line was, I introduced myself. I said, well, has anybody ever given you a break? And the guy said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, Mort over there in the corner office, because of course I've been doing business with him for several years. I said, well, if you buy something, I'll get a sales job. And he goes, that's the strangest sales pitch I've ever heard. He said, okay, I'll buy something. and I'll tell Mort that, he should hire you as a salesperson. I said, great. And, is there anything stopping you from buying 2 things? And he kind of said, don't push your luck, kid. So that's how I got my job. And my first sales job was selling a variety of things, wholesale on the phone. The most memorable is selling Mr. Coffee's wholesale. And we would call just about anybody who had a business and try to pitch them that they should be buying Mr. Coffee's and using them for a variety of reasons. And I have to say that was quite an interesting job. I felt amazed that this existed, and something that could take all of the, John being the talker, talk about stepping back from that point. Just a few years earlier, like a decade, I was in kindergarten, and my mother had to pitch me on going to kindergarten because I didn't really want to go. I'm sure that's pretty common with kids. I don't want to leave. We got this nice little environment here. Things are working out. Hang on. Why am I going to do that? Well, you got to go to kindergarten. I said, well, what? So kind of, tell me what's the purpose? What are we doing here? And my mother said, well, you're going to get to meet children that you don't know, and you have to get to know them. And it's, a big part of it is what we would now call socialization, not socialize, but socialization, socialize. And I thought, man, this is pretty cool. I got it. I mean, I think I can do it. I can handle that. So I show up at kindergarten and never forget her, because she was not a fan of mine. And by the end of kindergarten, Mrs. Tepley, whatever the hell her name was, she got real annoyed with me because I thought my job was to introduce and talk to everybody. And most of the 5-year-olds there were, just hanging on, scared to death because, hey, I don't know when my mom's going to come and get me. I don't know when it's going to happen, and it's only a half day. I mean, come on. So I started introducing myself to everybody and doing what turns out would become the Raging Verbalist. And I know it's hard for some of you to believe that I was just sitting there talking to everybody, and I was. And so she wanted to punish me, and she did two things that she did to punish me. I don't know if it scarred me for life, but made me realize that I probably need to find an occupation that suits this demeanor. And number one is that she made me sit behind the piano so I wouldn't disturb the other children while she played the piano. So that was a lot of fun. And then the second thing is that there was this really cool Roy Rogers set, your little ranch for Roy, little plastic horses and all that other stuff. And I never got to play with that. I mean, even to this day, maybe I need to go to counseling, but I never got to play with Roy Rogers' little toy set because she said, you are so disruptive. You talk to everybody. And where is that going to take you, young man? Well, I don't know where she is today, but I'll tell you where it took me, baby. So there you go. So that was
it took you all the way to the top.
Took me right to here. What do you have, huh? So, yeah.
All right. What are some of the important lessons that first job gave you?
Well, the first one it did is I had a sales manager, Irv, and we'll leave his last name out, but Irv was a guy who had 2 volume levels. It was either, yelling or like a jet airplane or jet engine taking off. I mean, he was loud. I know people have said, John, you talk loud. This guy was loud, like, vibrate the windows kind of loud. And, he would just sit there and tell me in his own Irv way about why am I not on the phone making calls. So that was a big lesson, which is, don't delay, call now. And I'll never forget when I walked up one day, I had gone through all the lead cards. We had lead cards. And I walked up and I said, Irv, I'm kind of out of lead cards. Can I have a few more? And he goes, oh, you want some more leads, do you? And I said, yes. And he goes, okay, well, how many leads do you want? And I said, well, like a handful, He goes, well, 10 would do it. And I said, well, yeah, I could get through 10 in the shift. He goes, how about 20? So, okay, well, that's going to be harder, but, I'll give it a shot. And he goes, well, go back to your desk. Now, this is an open pit. And as I got to my little cubicle area, it wasn't even a cubicle, but when I got to my little place, he said, turn around, and he flung, like a quarterback throwing a football at me with the giant phone book from Denver, because they had one big giant yellow pages. And he said, start with the A's, go to the Z's, start with the Z's, go to the A's, start in the middle, but fucking call somebody, which of course was a shock to my system. So that was a lesson I learned. And by the way, I see this every day when I'm talking to clients, especially business owners, and their team isn't doing that. And as he said, quit trying to analyze the lead, call the lead, and let the sale happen. So learned a lot of those things, and I never once again asked Irv for more leads because I understood what was going on in that world. So that was a big lesson, and that you had to really call and call and call. The other thing that I noticed is that I did better than a lot of people in that room. In fact, I started calling every real estate agent in the phone book, because I would explain to them that if they sold houses, they should be buying Mr. Coffee's wholesale from us, putting a big bow on it, and as a get acquainted, and congratulations on buying your house, and bring them the coffee pot. And I had a rough, crude referral pitch that I gave them, which amazing to me that people who have been in real estate for 10, 15, 20 years, it would go, that's a great pitch, and it's like, yikes. Now I wish I would said I came up with it. Actually, the guy who was the best in the room, Roger, came up with it, but it worked really well. So those are some of the lessons. And the biggest thing is that you've got to get off your ass and you got to sell, because that's the reality of life. If you're not selling, what are you doing?
And what is your position on all of the various euphemisms about sales?
So as I left that insane asylum and moved on to selling other things, and then eventually getting into high tech, what I noticed is that the word sales started getting dropped from more and more people who were in the sales business. And it would be, well, I'm a representative, I'm an outreach person, I'm a consultant, I'm an advisor, I'm a this, I'm a that. And there's like, I don't know how many different euphemisms. And I can tell you that I think that most of that is just puffery. People are trying to make it sound like they're more than they are. But more importantly, they're trying to hide or cloak or, not tell people what they're really doing. If you're in sales, I think that you have to really think long and hard about dropping all of that nonsense and accepting the fact that you're in sales. Your job is to promote whatever it is that you're doing, product, service, whatever that might be. Your job is to get that word out. You are the deliverer of the message. And if that bothers you, then go find a different business. There is no funny way to describe it when you have to actually get down to really selling. Now, I've seen people, especially who are coming from the marketing department, who, of course, were somewhat bashful and all of that, and it cost them because they weren't nearly as good at selling as they should have been. Now, if you're nowhere near where you should be in business in general, well, do we have a solution for you? Do I have a deal? Such a deal, as Irv would say. And that deal is that you should, in fact, go over and pick up this to save yourself. Pick up. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. Position to win. Now, for those of you who say, but John, I'm in sales, that sounds more like a marketing book. It's all about how to understand who you're selling to, how you're selling to them, and what you're going to do. But it's more about also making sure that you don't make fundamental mistakes when you're going to go out and sell. And if you do that, and if you learn how to do this really well, then I can tell you one thing, that you're going to make more sales because you're going to learn some things in here that you, I know, will not know. So you can check it out at positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. Also, you can buy it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, wherever physical copies are sold. But you can also get it at Kindle, Nook, and iBooks, Apple. Also, if you want to check out Remote Work for a Better World, that is our book that talks about remote work and how most people do it poorly, do it better, because Well, we all have to get smarter and better. And my final thing to say is, and if you need some encouragement, you need somebody to sit there and say, yes, you can do it. Get yourself a Raging Verbalist mug, officially done. You know, it doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed, you're always seeing the Raging Verbalist, and makes coffee taste better, whatever you're gonna do. Now, some of you might even be tea drinkers. I have no idea why. My wife's a tea drinker, I don't know why. But you can even use it for that. You know, we have no restrictions on what you're gonna use. Once you get the mug, it's your mug. Okay, Sandra, what do we have next?
All right. Why do you think it's important for people to embrace this kind of profession?
I believe that if you don't know how to sell, if you can't project and sell yourself, that you're going to be, and it's got to be at least 80% of the population that's here, maybe more. But what it means is that you are not going to be able to get what you want out of life. You have to be able to convince somebody, whether that's your spouse, whether that's your family, your boss. If you want to raise, you got to go sell them on why that's going to be important. But you have to be able to, if we distill it, you have to be able to advocate for a position and be persuasive enough to get somebody to say, yes, I like what they're saying, and I'm going to, buy into what they're saying. I think that what they are all about is right. If you can't sell yourself and your ideas and who you are, you're going to have a really hard time in life, which is why I think that every person should learn how to sell. The fact that most people don't know how to sell, the fact that they shy away from it actually gives all of us who know how to do this a decided advantage, and it really moves the needle in a different way. So I think that you need to embrace it. I also think that inside of companies, I've seen this over and over again where the sales team is not viewed at the level that they need to be viewed at, because we're the ones bringing in the money. We're the ones bringing in the customers. We're the ones who are going out and developing those contacts and getting these great ideas out there so somebody says yes instead of no. That's worth something. So that's why I believe that you really need to embrace it. Do not be shy about it. Do not be afraid of it, and understand that it is a great profession. And by the way, get good at it, because all the people who really suck at it ruin it for the rest of us, in the sense that people are used to or see, especially through movies and television shows and YouTube and other media that goes on streaming, is that they show salespeople in the worst possible light, and they do a really lousy job of doing it, because all they're doing is taking the worst parts of it, not the best parts of it. You need to be able to make things happen, and sales is how you do that.
And can anyone learn how to sell?
At one point in time, I thought everybody could learn how to sell. When I started speed selling, 25 plus years ago, I was really convinced of that. I'm now less convinced of that than ever before. I think everybody can learn how to sell better than they are selling now. But I think that a lot of times the barriers, and it's what happens between your ears and your head. It just stops so many people from doing it. They don't know what to say, how to say it, what to do. I don't want to be a person who has to go out there and ask people these things and push them along and do all that. Well, all I can say is that that's going to make you really unsuccessful. So I don't believe everybody can learn how to sell. Now, you can learn how to sell better than you know now, but wherever you're at, wherever that base is, you can move it up. But I think that some people really should just stay accountants and engineers and other things that are not really conducive to that.
And can anyone sell anything to anyone?
So that's one of those kind of straw men or straw persons or whatever, however we want to call it. And I have had ongoing debates with some people that I greatly respect. And I can tell you that I have thought it through, and here's my sales or selling syllogism. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it's basically a logical construct of an argument. I'm going to give it to you right now. Number one is you have to ask yourself what you sell. So whatever you are selling, you've got to define what that is. You have to know what that is. Number two is who you sell to. When I'm selling a piece of technology that goes into an attack helicopter, I'm selling to a very specific type of customer. If you're selling something that goes into a into a specific car, let's say you're building aftermarket parts for a car, well, whoever you're going to sell it to is that person. So whatever you're selling, that's step number one. Step number two, who you sell to is important. And the third is that the first two dictate, and I mean dictate. You can modify it. You could be the breakthrough. You could be the innovator. They dictate how you must sell, because you have to sell based upon those first two premises. If you don't, you're not going to be successful. This is not a one size fits all. If you ever see these ridiculous, where a clothes says one size fits all, well, one side we got a big giant basketball player, and on the other side we got a jockey. Well, there's almost 200 pounds between the two. I'm going to say no amount of stretch fabric is going to make that work. So in selling, you have to understand that it comes down to the most important thing, and this, if you've got nothing else from what we're talking about, is 3 steps: what you sell, number 2, who you sell to, number 3, how you must sell. You do those 3 things, and I know that your sales will go up significantly. It is why I can step into almost any sales circumstance and be able to get things happening and moving. And I understand that there's a lot of, hey, John, you're greatly talented. You've been doing this for a long time, 50 years, all of that. But what I'm going to tell you is that though that makes perfect logical sense, the bigger, more important thing to remember is that since I know those 3 pieces, it gives me a decided advantage to anybody who's just trying to say, well, one size fits all, or I'm going to take something that's canned from before and toss it in.
And what advice can you give entrepreneurs and business owners who need to hire a salesperson?
Every time I coach a business owner or an entrepreneur, especially if they are now on the high motivation, I need to get somebody who's really good at selling, and I want to go do that, is they all say, John, I want to hire a superstar. Now, who doesn't want to hire a superstar? Now, when they say that, the question is are they willing to do several things? Number one, are they willing to pay what I call the superstar tax? Superstars operate a very different way than other people. First off, they know that they can go out there and conjure up sales in just about any field and doing just about anything they need to do. So that means that it is harder to hire them. It is virtually impossible to build an entire team of superstars. First off, they will probably blow up any organization you have. And they're not afraid if you sit there and say, if you don't straighten up and fly right, you know what's going to happen? We're going to have to do something about this. Because you know what they say? Goodbye, I'm gone, I'm out of here. Most importantly is that you have to understand that the salespeople that you hire, you want to know how they're going to react to adversity. When you have salespeople, they need to have mental toughness. They have to be relentless in their pursuit, because if you are waiting for your fair share of the market, please contact me, because I want to go and find your competitors and put you out of business. You want to have people who are ambitious and driven and motivated, and those are the things that you're going to look for. But understand, the better they are, the more that you're going to have to deal with the personality and all of that comes with hiring some of the best in the sales world.
And for someone out there who's never considered themselves a salesperson, what are some of the things they need to know and why?
Well, the first thing that you have to accept, if you say, well, John, I've never been in sales, never want to be in sales, never want to think about it, is that every single day, all of us are selling to a certain extent, whether we're selling in a relationship, whether that's with your family, your spouse, your bigger extended family, whether it's when you're working for other people, you have to sell them. If somebody thinks that there is ever a position or area where you don't have to know how to sell or don't have to be that person who's going to convince other people to do things, all I can tell you is I don't believe that there is a single business that can operate or a person who can operate without being able to move that person across from you to thinking a little bit differently because of what you're going to do. So what you need to know is that 100% of us, whether we want to accept it or not, are in sales to one extent or another. And why is it important? Because the people who are good at persuading other people, who are good at laying out those arguments and are very powerful in doing that, end up with better, more rewards and more things in their life. If you do that, then what I have just done today is worthwhile. I'm trying to convince you that selling is a great profession, a great advocation. But more importantly, is that it is something that enriches your life because it allows you to do things that you wouldn't otherwise have ever been able to do. I have seen it in my own life and my client's life and all of the people that I've worked with who in fact have stepped it up to the next level and the next level and the next level. If you do that, then what you'll discover is that you'll get better over time, you'll get stronger over time. But the most important thing is that you have to be very proud of the fact that you have a capability that not everyone possesses. When someone says to me, but John, if everybody went out and got sales training, we'd end up where zero-sum game back at the same place, but just at a higher level. And I can tell you that not everybody gets it, not everybody works hard enough at it, and more importantly, not everybody gets up inspired, excited, and motivated that what they need to do is talk to somebody today and change the direction that that person is going and make sure that their point of view comes across, and more importantly, that their proposition, their offer, their ideas get sold in this big world that we're in. What I hope for each and every one of you is great success. I've had some tremendous ups, and yes, I've had downs. The most important thing is that even though I never got to play with the Roy Rogers set when I was in the kindergarten, I can tell you one thing. Every single time I go out there and things come together and I help a client or a business I'm in where we have a record-breaking month or a year, or we have something amazing happen, I know that at the core, I was able to help sell the idea, sell the concept, and more importantly, sell the product or service, which enriched not only us, but the client that we were working with, the customer that we were selling to, and more importantly, solve problems for people. If you do that, then you can be very proud of being in the sales profession. I'm John Paul Mendoza. Dr. Speed Selling is the Raging Verbalist, number 178. And what I advocate that you do is you think about it and embrace the fact that maybe, just maybe, you have to go and join the dark side and get serious about your selling and get serious about your life. Until next time, go out there and sell and go out and do what you know you have to do, which is go out there and reach out there and grab the life that you deserve.